Hello. Today, I hope this video finds you well. And I'm walking, and I want to share some thoughts. This video is for no one in particular. Although it is somewhat for myself to kind of help me keep track of things, and also for anyone who particularly resonates such that they can know where I'm coming from in terms of my thinking, such that we can minimize misunderstandings in the case of some sort of collaboration or endeavor, which is the topic of this video. Today, we're going to be speaking about the Hypothetical Society, which is a joking name, of course. I want to speak about the super cult. JK. I want to speak about in-person relating, estuary, conferences, meetups, picnics, campouts, communities slash cooperations, coordinations, that type of thing. Discords as well, and video calls, all that goodness. And, of course, how this relates to my grand unified theory of relation. Said jokingly, of course. More so this beautiful phenomenon slash faculty slash happening, which I've been discussing, and as you can probably see, it's very relevant to anything in person, talking about eye contact, eurythmy, and basically language and such. But to prevent, of course I could talk about that forever, so I want to mostly talk about what I've been thinking about with regard to communities, so-called, whatever you want to call them, not a cult, super cult. Basically, off the bat is that I've been, I had this crazy experience in 2016, 2017 where I took a whole bunch of acid and my mind blown up because I had a mystical experience where I encountered a pattern of reality or something like that, and I saw some timeline related stuff or something, and it was just, and a new way of like a mode of being, a phenomena which can be achieved, etc. And this kind of rocked my world and caused me a lot of suffering and relational difficulties, having to come face to face with some of my complexes, demons, shadow qualities, whatever you want to call it. But very much so, it really took a toll on my relational life, except for my relation with God. I would say that's the relationship which really deepened, insofar as being by yourself. It's kind of like, it's like this monk type of experience, like if you wilderness retreat type of vibes. You will encounter reality, and it will blow your mind. And God is good, stuff like that. And but yeah, it really took a toll on my social life. Trying to stay on the point here so this doesn't sound like an hour-long video. I haven't even started, kind of. But yeah, so that took a toll on my relationships and stuff, and my ability to face-to-face interact, because it was kind of just this overwhelming, almost like this infinitely deep communion was just like, I was just like, that's all I could think about and stuff, how it was so available, or so like, that it could be available or stuff like this. But I'm trying not to, I'm not putting a whole lot of thought into this part because I'm trying to move on, which is that I've been living with my parents. I came back from college, I've been living with my parents, and I love my parents, but it's time to go out into the world. The monk, the so-called, not that I'm a monk, of course, but the monkish phase, you can only have so much of that, and then you're like, man, I want to help, I want to, participate, and I want to share it with people, and I want to be with others, etc., and, not to retreat from the world, etc., and the point being that the first thing here is that I'm trying to move out of my parents' house. It's time, I want to do that. And so I'm thinking, what do I do? Do I buy an apartment? Do I rent some shit, just have a shitty job? No. I want to hopefully find some other people who have somewhat like-minded vibes. Of course it's good to have some opponent processing. You don't just want to be in an echo chamber of everybody thinks exactly the same, but generally people who are kind of similarly oriented in terms of the spiritual path, the intellectual path, or whatever the heck you want to call it, who feel similarly called to participate in a meaningful and beautiful way, and who have been struck by the by the kiss of Sophia, I might say, I dare say. Alright, so that's that, and there are other things as well that's kind of motivating me insofar as, okay, so I'm just gonna make this a little left brain. We're getting a little right brain here. It's getting a little loose associational, hard to follow perhaps. So left brainism, we need a little bit of it here. I'm thinking 4 or 5 principles, which I am very much moved by. One of them is that community aspect, to have a brotherhood, a fellowship, like-minded dudes and ladies, perhaps, depending on the size of such a community, perhaps it will develop a fellowship, perhaps it will develop over time, and that is one, and I see that as very much connecting with the whole body of Christ, idea where people who are, participating properly, it's there's kind of collective, there's stuff about that, the spiritual community aspect, the ecclesia, the fellowship of the Spirit, stuff like this, similarly to what we see in Estuary and stuff, but, to really embed this into our whole lives such that we're it's almost like a permanent estuary in a sense. But, so that is one. Then the other is, there's another, which is this anti-matrixification. A little bit of a mouthful, but another way we could phrase it is the return of the divine feminine. Or something like that, where it's about, we see this trend where everything is becoming digitalized, and all of our relationships are becoming, people don't interact with their local communities, people don't hug each other, it's all just playing video games at night, watching porn, whatever it may be, and this is no good. And we need counterbalances. It's not to say all the technology is evil or anything, but it's certainly the pace is kind of out of control and stuff, or something like that, and we just need to be more deliberate and intentional about doing things, not forsaking or trying to escape our corporeal physical existence, but embracing the beauty, even the indeterminacy, and the difficulty perhaps of face-to-face, feet on the ground type of stuff, and I'm called to that. I like me some nature. I want to be in touch with nature and such. And so we got spiritual community, and that also connects with the whole gotta tie my shoe real quick. The spiritual community aspect fits with the whole vision I had about this new way of people relating. It's that when we are something, but I don't want to get into all that right now, at least not yet. We have the spiritual community, anti-matrixification / the return of the divine feminine, and then let's talk about ark building. Peterson's got his whole ark thingy. It's kind of interesting that it's spelled with a C, kind of like you could put it in the mathematical sense, like an arc of a circle, or like an arc of electricity, I don't know, deep. It seems like there's some deep symbolic something that could be perceived here, but basically this idea of, sometimes if you ask Peterson, what is God? He's like, well, let's look at the Bible, and he says, for Noah, God was the voice that tells you to prepare that a flood is coming, or something like that. And I don't know about y'all, but I personally think that you'd have to have your ears kind of blocked or something to, which a lot of people do in a symbolic sense, to not intuit that something pretty wild is around the corner, or something of the sort, whether it be war, pandemic, harsh winter, solar flare, EMP, power grid failure, etc., and AI, and all this shit, climate collapse, and the list goes on, of course. Pretty sure like 90% of the bees died this year or something. Something like that. It's so fucking shit in the air. Everybody's eating junk, etc. So, I intuit that something's pretty wild. And I also think, even from a less intuitive, more kind of rationality-based, looking at the cold, hard, mechanical stuff, of course we can't always use the past to kind of predict the future, of course, because habits can be, suddenly different or something like that, but there is also a certain regularity and consistency of the divine patterns and such that constitute reality, and I think some of this is kind of a resistance from the cosmos, which allows us to develop for example, like wind on trees. Like if a tree has no wind blowing on it, pushing on it, then it can't grow tall and strong. And so I think also from it seems like a lot of scientists are more so now talking about how solar weather affects Earth weather and how geomagnetism works and stuff like this, how volcanoes and earthquakes are related to this, various cycles and stuff. And of course I'm no expert in this, but I feel like there's also a case to be made for that type of angle beyond just an intuitive spiritual sense or something. So ark building, I'm thinking there's a real possibility that to carry the spirit of this type of fellowship, to carry the torch, as it were, to the best of my ability, and to also not perish earlier than I might, such that I can, if you save your life, you'll lose it, right? But if you lose it for my sake, you'll find it, and I want to lose my life in a beautiful and impactful way. And if I just walk off a bridge one day, then that doesn't exactly help things. And so that's kind of analogous. If I just don't look into the possibility of such climatological things or something, then it's kind of like walking off a bridge. It's like walking blind or something. Anyway, so yeah, that's another thing, and that's seriously on my mind in the sense that I think I want to enmesh myself in more so of a local food economy, such that I'm somewhere where I'm producing goods and trading goods with other local farmers and such like this, less dependent on global shipping, less dependent on electricity, because whether it's a nuke or whether it's an EMP or a freaking solar flare, I think we definitely kind of live in this weird little bubble where, I don't think the whole system will be wiped out or the whole humanity will be wiped out or anything. There probably certain places will remain and such, but, I feel like some sort of upset to this little nice period we've had is kind of wouldn't surprise me or something. So that is one thing, and I think that this could be soon, whereas also there's astrological things which suggest that, the next couple of years are going to be pretty crazy. And yeah, so that's principle number 3, ark building. And I feel there's a certain urgency in this regard, such that I would even be willing to, I don't know, I feel like people are kind of called to make certain sacrifices in terms of their so-called quality of life and such. But yeah, so that is that. And then lastly, kind of tying it into the more the stuff that relates more to this kind of vision or idea or whatever you want to call it that I had with the acid about eye contact and eurythmy and body language and empathic resonance and stuff like that, is this creative agency. And this is where I'm going to talk a little bit more metaphysical and such, where essentially I think that reality is constituted of this reciprocal slash loop-like interrelationship slash marriage / in between of kind of the heaven and earth, essentially, mind and body, and that subjectivity kind of emerges at the boundary of these things, the I amness. Here I kind of defer to Keelan of Formscapes, where he has been elaborating this cosmology. It's also in keeping with, hopefully the wind isn't too bad on the mic here. It's also in keeping with the stuff that Galahad's been talking about, with the womb below, Abraxas standing in between, and yes. And how does this relate? It's this, basically that the Genesis, the ongoing cosmogenesis, which is the kind of the creation, the creative happening, which is reality, happens at this kind of boundary between the Father above and the Mother below, the paternal formal realm, noumenal realm, and the core, the feminine, the potential, the sea of possibility, and the formlessness, the emptiness of divine darkness, which is not merely a privation or an absence of light, but something of its own, something, a nothing, a no thingness, no thingness. So something like that, and we participate in that. We are on that, and we participate in that particularly. As human beings, we're especially becoming kind of metacognitive, aware of our ultimate nature being this kind of I am, this ongoing creative happening or something like that, where we participate in that ongoing cosmogenesis, and we are waking up more and more to that, such that we can kind of emphasize certain things in the creative symphony, as it were. We can kind of be more deep participants in this creative happening of ultimate reality, and there's a certain agency which we can kind of develop, and this is, I think, prefigured by Jesus Christ. But I don't want to, part of that is difficult to talk about, of course. It's like, there's a certain, it's basically like also what, I'm not sure if whoever's watching this has heard of Grim Grizz, but he talks about agency, and also John Vervaeke talks about agency. You want a certain, this is also kind of like consciousness. It's like becoming, but it's really like a deep participation in that generative in between heaven and earth. It's to reconnect the mind and the body, to become a symbol of that ultimate reality by marrying heaven and earth in our actions. And this is transfiguration. This is feeling. This is the deepening of God's feeling. Because this is, if God is that kind of ultimate, a lot of people think of God as just kind of off in the formal space, but I think the ultimate reality is in the in-between, such that like it is the deepening of that rich marriage is what is kind of the deepening of the feeling of ultimate reality, or something like that. The experiencing, the richness of that weddedness And that is the other, and that's, I think, what does that look like? It looks like unity and multiplicity. It is co-unity, where things come together. It's love, it's the relationship of love, where you can have oneness that does not diminish the pure subjectivity or the uniqueness of each person, in a sense. Not like the uniqueness in the sense like, oh, my idiosyncrasies, but in the sense where it's like, that like the cells in a body, where the cells are what they are, and they participate in their own kind of way in the larger whole. And so yeah, that's kind of the heady one. So we got anti-matrixification, we got spiritual community, fellowship, body of Christ, that type of thing. We got ark building, because everything's about to go to shit. And I don't mind leaning into that a bit, because I think everybody feels something analogous. And we have this creative agency, this deepening of the cosmogenesis and our participation in it. So, an important thing about that multi-unity spiritual community thing is that it is not kind of it's not organized in the way of most communities or most fellowships, where it's really the principles and those purposes, the shared purposes, which are kind of leading, and that people would basically find others who kind of agree on analogous principles or something like that, and that they collaborate. And I think that this will happen. Like, I think that this is just how it's going to go. And partially that's why I'm putting out this is the type of principles which are in my mind. Other people might be like, a principle for me is that we make billions of dollars, and that's like more of a corporation type of thing, corporation. But there's basically, I think one thing that can come up is that I'm not looking to convince anybody to abide by my principles or anything, but if these principles resonate with your principles, and perhaps we and I might be able to budge on certain of them, make compromises, but it would but yeah, basically I'm trying to basically by the spring of next year I want to be like situated somewhere new, and actualizing those principles / purposes, and yeah, if people, I already have talked to some people who are on board, but basically, like, yeah, I'm not trying to convince anyone, but if anyone agrees with those principles, then or is similarly moved and kind of faithful in such principles, like, I put a lot of trust in this, and like I'm very much like going to make this. I'm going to like make this I'm going to, you know, do the thing. Like I'm pretty determined to be situated somewhere else by the spring, and yeah, I'm not really looking to like lead a spiritual movement or you know, like convince anyone to support such a thing, you know, but I will definitely make it possible for people to support if they so desire. And if these 4 or 5 principles or whatever particularly resonate with you, as things that you already feel, then yeah, reach out. And you know, I'm probably not gonna put this up publicly, maybe just unlisted in kind of communities that I frequent. And yeah, that's all. Alright, I'm gonna tag on some stuff here. There was a guy walking behind me, and he came closer and closer, and I got distracted by that. The plan in my mind has been either to, and I've already been talking with some people who are probably on board with this, but my current plan is probably to move into an apartment for like 6 months or something, as like kind of half step, and then to move to land, hopefully with around 12 people, you know, and in a sense where like ultimately maybe there would be some relationships, or other people would like people who are already in relationships, or you know, like we would perhaps you know, have the whole thing would be like very much a money sharing operation. And the goal would be to move to land with about 12 people, somewhere that's hooked up to the grid, for such that, but like increasingly shifting it otherwise, increasingly making it more and more off-grid, such that if the grid went down or something, we would be basically situated and in touch with our neighbors and stuff, basically like, you know, 2 years from now. Like, hopefully we would be prepared for such a happening to at least some degree. And you know, it could also involve joining somewhere that's already has something situated like that, you know, and maybe they're looking for more people. But yeah, that's kind of the thinking. You know, I imagine we could find land with some sort of townhouse, or you know, a house with 5 or 6 rooms, where we could build more cabins in that 6-month kind of transition window from the apartment to the place. And I imagine we could find that for less than $100,000, And yeah, if there's 12 people, that's less than $10,000 each, and that's what I'm thinking. So yes, more thoughts to come. Right, I'm back home. I'm back home now from my walk. Some more thoughts to tag on. Um, I think an important thing that distinguishes this from a cult or something of the sort is that it's largely just me trying to move out with a bunch of people who are kind of like-minded and equally like motivated. So like I don't want to lead this and even if people kind of like project onto me as a leader, I want to be like very deliberate. Like I'm not, like we all have, I want to come to a shared, it's always going to be kind of the principles leading. So the people would have to kind of equally collaborate on finding shared principles and not just to avoid the responsibility of kind of the endeavor being on my shoulders, but also just in general, I think people need to be kind of working through their own agency and like has to very much be like people people coordinating, not like yeah, I'm not sure if that makes sense, but it's like there's something where I just I don't want to like I'm not trying to do a big idealistic thing. I'm just like seeing if anybody else kind of feels similarly and is like ready and is like willing to kind of take a risk in this regard, like knowing full well that it is kind of like a somewhat of a risk, although at the same time I'm also very determined to make it happen one way or another, in the sense that like if times become like if it looks to be unfeasible, like I would stick it out. I would probably, even if it meant like eating less for a while, like I'm going to make this transition one way or another. So like people would have to have similar commitments or like an understanding that if all of a sudden someone feels, oh, I can't survive without my Starbucks, then, you should have known that was, like that type of thing is, like the people who are equally kind of feeling determined in this way. Hopefully that makes sense. I was talking with someone who's kind of like, you need like fallback plans such that if it didn't work out, then like you wouldn't be responsible for lots of people's kind of lost money or something. But on one hand, I would be determined that it will work out. Like there's no, like even if it means being kind of broke for a while or something like that. But also just in the sense that like I would, my people would have to have their own kind of fallback plans because I'm gonna like make it happen one way or another, and like worst case scenario, I end up like homeless or something. I probably won't. Like maybe I could move back in with my parents, but the point, because they would probably allow that. But the point is that I'm going to like, stick it out, regardless of kind of the circumstances, and that anybody who I'm doing this with would have to like kind of be similarly minded in the, something like that. And also, so I'm like not really kind of leading anything. I'm like, I'm gonna go do this. Does anyone want to, if anyone wants to do it with me, you are kind of welcome. But of course, you would need to know, we'd have to vibe. We would have to vibe well, and you'd have to kind of know what we would have to be kind of in agreement about what our kind of motivations and principles and kind of limits are and such. Like, such it would be very, very key would be high quality kind of conversation and about decisions or whatever it may be. So that is that. Yeah. I think I had something else, but I'm not remembering. Yeah. That's kind of it. So, yeah, these are my thoughts. Hopefully it is clear to people, and yeah, I plan to probably spend around $25,000 of my own money-ish. And I am like, I'm pretty determined to do this. Very much so. So, hopefully this inspires you. But also, I don't really want to do it with people who are merely inspired by me. I want, if this particularly resonates and you've been thinking about similar things like this and you're equally motivated kind of your own accord, perhaps you've thought about this before quite a bit and in a serious manner. Not everybody fantasizes about stuff like this, but, people who are dead ass doing it or trying to do it. Oh yes, I remembered what I was going to say. You may think, why would I mentioned earlier that I would make it possible for people to support such an endeavor, if they so desire. And you may think, why would I support such an endeavor with my own hard-earned dollar bills? And it's also that I intend to host events and conversations and such like that. Like there would be it would maybe be an estuary meeting place, and like we would host gatherings and campouts and probably live streams, but not in the sense that we're like a spiritual movement or anything, but more so like just this is the type of thing I want to do, and maybe other people want to do that as well. And yeah, if you want to see a permanent estuary space where you can go whenever you want to go camp out and have a deep conversation, you're always welcome, unless you are super annoying. or something like that, of course. Or unless you're a freaking undercover weirdo, in which case we would instantly spot you. Of course. So, that is all. And stay tuned or reach out. And that is all.